Hello. So in this lab exercise, we are going to learn agile planning and portfolio management with Azure Boards. This is a hands-on lab experience. And in this lab, we will start with setting up an Azure DevOps organization. I will help you understand how you can begin with Azure DevOps demo generator. Then we are going to focus on all of these tasks. So within the Azure DevOps portfolio, we are going to use Azure Boards today. Using Azure Boards, we are going to perform all of these tasks to simulate agile planning and portfolio management. So I hope you find this lab useful. So before we start with the DevOps lab, the first step what we need to do is we need to set up an Azure DevOps organization. So to set up the DevOps organization, I'm going to go to a new tab and I'm going to go to dev.azure.com. That will take you to this page. So to start your DevOps organization, if you don't have already, all you have to do is click on Start Free or sign in with your Azure DevOps. So I'm going to click on sign in to Azure DevOps with my Azure username and password. Click on that. It is asking me to confirm some information like my name, email address, and the location. I'm going to say yes and click on continue. And once you get this message of get started with Azure DevOps, click on continue again and give a name for your organization. I'm going to call it AGTC DevOps and pick a place where you would like to host your projects in. So I'm going to pick Australia East. Verify the details and click on continue. All right, so the setup for our organization is completed. So now it is asking, do you want to create a new project to get started? So we will not use this at the moment. So I'm going to help you understand. For your lab exercise, you can use something called Azure DevOps Demo Generator. That's what we are going to use now. So for that, I'm going to go to another tab. And this time I'm going to go to Azure DevOps Demo Generator.com, azurewebsite.net. So what we are going to do is we are going to set up the prerequisites for this lab, which consist of the pre-configured Parts Unlimited Teams project based on Azure DevOps Demo Generator template. So the template we are going to find is Parts Unlimited. So this Azure DevOps Demo Generator website will automate the process of creating a new Azure DevOps projects within your account that is pre-populated with content, which include work items, repos, etc. That is what we need for this lab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on sign in because I've already signed in with my username and password on the same browser. So I'm going to click on sign in. It should automatically pick up the user credentials. As you can see that the environment automatically picked up my environment and click on accept. So on the create new project page, first let's give a name for our project. I'm going to call it as Agile Planning and Portfolio Management with Azure Boards. And under select organization, select your organization, which is what we created in the first step. The next step, instead of using the Smart Hotel 360 template, click on choose template and we are going to find Parts Unlimited. You can see that Parts Unlimited template is here. And you can use this lab to provision a Scrum-based team project containing sample work items, complete source code, and pipeline definition to deploy Parts Unlimited. And this is a sample e-commerce website based on the Phoenix project. So click on that. And on the right hand side, after selecting Parts Unlimited, click on select template. Alright, so our template is selected, we given a name for our project and we selected the organization. The next step is to click on create project. So we need to wait for this process to complete. So this would ideally take around 2 to 3 minutes. And when you try to do it, if this process fails, you need to navigate to your Azure DevOps organization, delete the project, and you need to try one more time. Alright, so congratulations, our project for this lab is successfully provisioned. And let's go and do our next task. Now that we have completed the prerequisites for the lab, the first task we are going to do is manage teams, areas, and iteration within the Manage Agile project exercise. Let's go and do that. So in this exercise, we are going to use Azure Boards to perform a number of common agile planning and portfolio management tasks, which include management of teams, areas, iterations, work items, sprints, and capacity. And we are going to learn how to customize Kanban boards, defining dashboards, and customizing teams processes. And the first task is to create a new team and configure its areas and iterations. So the first step is to click on this icon, which is called cogwheel. And once you click that, you will be able to open the project settings page. On the left hand side under general, click on teams. As you can see that there are already a few teams in this project. But what we are going to do is we are going to create a new team for this lab exercise. To create a new team, click on new team. So each new project is configured with a default team. And we have an option to create additional teams. And each team can be granted access to a suite of agile tools and team assets. The ability to create multiple teams give you the flexibility to choose the proper balance between autonomy and collaboration across the enterprise. Under the Create New Team panel, give a name for your team. So I'm going to call it as pull-web. I'm not going to modify any other changes like adding a member or setting up permissions, etc. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit on click Create. So now on the list of teams, you can see that there is a newly created team which we created just now, which is pull-web. Click on that. So by default, the new team has only me as its member because I'm the one who created it. So that I can use this view to manage such functionality as team memberships, notifications, and dashboards. So you can see the relevant links for notification and dashboards here. So what we're going to do right now is we are going to define the schedule and scope of the team. So to do that, click on iterations and area paths. So that opened up in another window for me. So we are still under boards, under teams configuration. At the top of the page, this time click on iterations. And on the bottom of the page, you can see that there is an add icon to select iterations. Here we are going to select our iteration, which is Agile Planning and Portfolio Management with Azure Boards. And this time we're going to select Sprint 1 and click on Save and Close. So our Sprint 1 iteration is being added. So please note that this is our first sprint. And if you notice the date, the sprint has already been passed. This is because the demo data generator is designed to build out project history so that this sprint occurs in the past. So we are going to repeat the same process one more time to create sprint 2 and sprint 3. So let's click on select iterations. This time I'm going to select sprint 2, and one more time, this time we're going to select sprint 3. As you can see that in the bottom of my screen, you will be able to see all 3 sprints. So now let's go back to the top of the boards. This time, select areas. Under area, you will be able to see that there is an automatically generated area with the name matching the name of the team, which is pull-web. So if you don't hover your mouse, you won't be able to see this next step. So I want you to pay attention here. So if you hover your mouse over here, you would be able to see an ellipsis. So click on that ellipsis and select include sub areas. On the drop down list, you would be able to see include sub areas. Now you can see that the sub areas are included. Please note that the default settings for all teams is to exclude sub area paths. So we have changed it to include the sub areas so that the team gets visibility into all of the work items from all teams. Optionally, the management team could also choose it to not include sub areas, which automatically removes work items from their view as soon as they are assigned to one of the teams. Alright, so our first task is completed. In this task, we will learn how to step through common work item management tasks. So the work items play a prominent role in Azure DevOps, whether describing work to be done, impediments to release, test definition, or other key items. Work items are the workhorse of modern projects. So we will focus on using various work items to set up the plan to extend the parts unlimited site with a product training section. While it can be daunting to build out such a substantial part of a company's offering, Azure DevOps and the Scrum process makes it very manageable. So to do that, I'm gonna go back to my Azure Boards. So click on Azure Boards and select work items. So this task is designed to show you a variety of ways you can create different kinds of work items, as well as to demonstrate the breadth and the features available on this platform. As a result, these steps should not be viewed as perspective guidance for project management, and the features are intended to be flexible enough to fit your process needs. So when you do it, please go ahead and explore and experiment as you go. So after going into work items, on the top ribbon box, click on new work item, and on the drop down list, select Epic. The work item what we are going to create is product training, and right below the product training you can see there is unassigned. So select the unassigned and assign it to a user. So I'm going to assign it to myself. Next, go under the area and select this drop down box. You would be able to see our project, and we have to select our team. So our team is pull web. So I'm going to select pull web. After that, go to iteration and select the drop down list, and I'm going to select sprint 2. This will set the iteration to agile planning portfolio management with Azure Boards sprint 2. After making these changes, hit save. So on a real life project, you would want to fill out as much information as possible. But because this is a lab environment, I'm not doing that. And you need to understand that the work item form will include all the relevant work item settings. This includes details about who it is assigned to, the status across many parameters, and all the associated information and history for how it has been handled since the creation. One of the key areas to focus is related work. So right now, go ahead and click on add a link. And within that, you have two options, existing item and new item. So select new item. On the add link panel, make sure you leave the default as child and come to work item type and select this drop down box. Instead of task, we're going to select feature. And we're going to give a name for this. I'm going to call it training dashboard. If you want to give a comment, you can do that. I'm going to click on OK. Make sure you scroll down and you can see the related work here. So we added product training here. And on top of the page, click on save and close. Now on the left hand vertical navigation plane, click on boards again. Under boards, click on boards, close the default view. And under my team boards, click on pull web boards. This is what we created. On the boards panel, make sure you see this backlog items and click on this drop down box. And instead of backlog items, switch it to features. So this is going to make it easy to add task and other work items to the features. As you can see that there is already one feature added. This is what we created in the previous task. So if you hover your mouse pointer over to the task, so you can see this ellipsis. So click on this ellipsis. So I'm gonna make a mark so you know where to do it. So click on this, and from the drop down list we are gonna add product backlog item. So click on that. This gets us a text box of the new product backlog item. So you can type in, I'm going to type in as a customer, I want to view new tutorials. And as soon as you release your mouse pointer or hit enter, that entry is already added. So what we have done right now is we have created a new product backlog item, which is known as PBI. And this is a child of the feature and shares its areas and iterations. So I'm going to uncheck it. So it's not completed yet. So we are going to repeat the same step to add two more PBIs, which is product backlog item. So you know how to add it. So go to this ellipsis, click on add product backlog item. This time I'm going to call it as a customer, I want to see the tutorials I recently viewed. Hit enter and add one more PBI. So click on add product backlog item. I'm going to call this as I want to request new tutorials and hit enter. So now if you go back to this navigation pane and instead of features, we select backlog items. You can see that the backlog items have a state that defines where they are relatively been. Is it completed or is it approved, committed or done? So we can always click and open and edit the work item using the form, or it is easier to just drag and drop these cards into the board. So I can just simply click on the board and I can simply drag to a different state based on the state of these actions. Other option is if you hover your mouse over these items, you can see there is an expand option. Click on this expand option and this is where you can change the state to either approved, committed, done or removed. Or you can either click on this unassigned box and assign it to a user as well. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is we're going to assign different stages to these tags or PBIs. So for the item number 161, I'm going to click on state and click on approved. So it moves to the approved state. And since it is not assigned to anybody, I'm going to click on this expand icon one more time. Click on this unassigned box and I'm going to assign it to myself. And I'm going to move the PBI 162 as a customer. I want to see tutorials I recently viewed. I'm going to move it to committed. And the third work item, I want to review this new tutorials. I'm going to move it to done. So this task board is one view into the backlog, and you can use the tabular view as well if you want. So to view as a tabular view, all you have to do is click on this view as backlog. This will switch it to the tabular view. To switch back, you can click on view as board. Within the tabular view, you can use this plus and minus symbols to view the nested task under these work items. And the second plus symbol, this will give you an option to add a new task to it. So let's go and click on this plus icon to add a new task. So I'm going to select this to add a new task. This will open a new task panel. So the first step is to enter a title on the text box. So I'm going to call it add page for most recent tutorials. If you want to add more description in the real world, you will add more description so other people know about it. And on the details tab, this is where you would be able to change the priority and change the status of the activity or status of your remaining work. So in the remaining work, I'm going to add 5. Under activity, select. I'm going to select not deployment or design. I'm going to select development. So this task is under development and we have 5 tasks remaining and the priority is 2. After making the changes, click on save and close. Now you can see that there is a new task added. So let's go and add one more task. So click on this plus icon and give a name. I'm going to call it as optimized data query for the most recent tutorials. And under details, priority, I'm going to retain it as 2. Remaining work, I'm going to add 3. And under activity, this is on the design stage. After making all these changes, click on save and close. This is how you can add more items or tasks under each of these lists. So this is how you can manage your work items. So that's the end of this task. So the next task, what we are going to do is to manage sprints and capacity. So let's go and do that. On the left-hand vertical navigation pane, click on sprints. So the teams build the sprint backlog during the sprint planning meeting, typically held on the first day of the sprint. And each sprint corresponds to a time-boxed interval which supports the team's ability to work using agile processes and tools. During the planning meeting, the product owner works with the team to identify those stories or backlog items to complete in the sprint. So these planning meetings typically consist of 2 parts. In the first part, the team and the product owner identify the backlog items that the team feels it can commit to completing in the sprint. These are all based on the experience with the previous sprints. These items gets added to the sprint backlog. And the second part is the team determines how it will develop and test each item. They then define the estimate the task required to complete each item, and finally the team commits to implementing some or all the item based on these estimates. So the sprint backlog should contain all the information the team needs to successfully plan and complete work within the time allotted without having to rush at the end. So before planning the sprint, you would want to have created, prioritized, and estimated the backlog and defined the sprint. And sprint is again part of your boards. So on the taskboard tab of your sprint view, in the toolbar, on the right hand side, select the view options. This is directly to the left of the funnel icon. So in the view options drop down list, select the work details entry. Please note that the one which we created, the current sprint, has pretty limited scope. There are 2 tasks in the to-do stage. At this point, neither task has been assigned. So both show a numeric value to the right of the unassigned entry. This estimates the remaining work estimate. So first I'm gonna select the first task and click on unassigned and assign the task to myself. So by doing that, this will automatically update this work to the assigned section of the work details pane. Now let's go and click on the capacity tab. And this view enables you to define what activities a user can take on and at what level of capacity. So let's click on this unassigned one and select the activity development and give the capacity for this as 1. So this is capacity per day text box. This represents 1 hour of development work per day. Please note that you can add additional activities per user in the case they do more than just development. So let's assume you're gonna take some vacation. You can click on this 0-day entry and this will display a panel where you can set your days off. So let's assume I'm gonna take 5 days of work holidays during this next sprint. I'm gonna select 23rd till 27. And after making those changes, click OK. And now I have marked this particular user is going to have a future holiday tagged. And I have made sure that there is capacity planned for 1 day of work for development and click on save. Now let's go and click on taskboard. And this time click on view options and click on work details. Here you can see the work details panel has been updated to reflect your available bandwidth. So the actual number displayed in the work details panel might vary, but your total sprint capacity will be equal to the number of working days remaining till the end of the sprint. Since you have allocated 1 hour per day, take a note of this value since you will be using it in upcoming steps. One other convenient feature of the board is that you can easily update key data inline. So it's a good practice to regularly update the remaining work estimate to reflect the amount of time expected for each task. So let's say you have reviewed the work for ad page for most recent tutorials and found that it will actually take longer than originally expected. Let's go and change the remaining work to 15 hours and click on save and close. Switch the view to work details. As you can see that this automatically expands the development and your personal capacities to their maximum. So one way to resolve this capacity issue would be to move the task to the future iteration. There are few ways this could be done. One way is to open the task and providing access to the task details. Another approach would be to use the backlog view. Now on the taskboard tab, this time click on these options and select people. Please note that this adjusts your view such that you can review the progress of task by person instead by a backlog item. There is also a lot of other customization options available. Now let's go and click on this settings panel. So this is called as configure team settings. Select styles tab and click on styling rule. Under the rule name, give a name called development. Scroll down. Under the card color, I'm going to select green. So this will color all cards green if they meet the rule criteria, which is set directly below. So you can see the rule criteria here. So let's go and set the rule criteria. So under the field, I'm going to select activity. Under the operator drop-down list, select equal. And under the value, I'm going to select development. So this rule is going to set all cards assigned to development activities green. And here under general, this is where you can see backlogs. So entities on this tab allow you to set the labels available for navigation. So epics are not included by default, but if you want to add epics, you can select that. Next, click on work days or working days. So entities on this tab allow you to specify the working days the team follows. This applies to capacity and burn down calculation. And the last tab is working with bugs. So entities on this tab allows you to specify how bugs are presented on the board. So if you do want to make any changes here, you can do that. I'm going to click on save and close. So now you can see that the task associated with development is now green and it's very easy to identify. Alright, so that completed the task on managing sprints and capacity. In this task, we will learn how to process or customize Kanban boards. So to maximize a team's ability to consistently deliver high quality software, Kanban emphasizes two main practices. The first is visualizing the flow of work. This requires you to map your team's workflow stages and configure a Kanban board to match. The second is constraining the amount of work in progress, which requires that you set work in progress limits. You are then ready to track progress on your Kanban board and monitor key metrics to reduce lead or cycle time. So let's go and do that. On the left-hand navigation pane, click on Boards. Under Boards, click on Boards again. So your Kanban board turns your backlog into an interactive signboard, providing a visual flow of work. As work progresses from idea to completion, you update the items on the board. Each column represents a work stage and each card represents a user story. User stories are usually coded by blue color and bugs are coded in red cards or red color. However, every team develops its own processes over time. So the ability to customize the Kanban board to match the way your team works is critical for the successful delivery. So let's learn how to customize your Kanban board. So first on the right hand side, you can see the settings icon. This is where you can configure team settings. So click on that. So on the settings panel, click on tag colors and click on tag color. And we are going to retain yellow color to data. So I'm going to name it as data. So whenever a backlog item or bug is tagged with data, that tag will be highlighted as yellow. Now let's click on annotations. And this is where you can specify which annotations you would like to include on the cards to make them easier to read and navigate. When an annotation is enabled, the child work items of that type are easily accessible by clicking the visualization on each card. The next item is test. The test tab enables you to configure how tests appear and behave on the cards. So we are not making any changes. I'm going to hit on save and close. So let's open the first backlog item. This backlog item is as a customer, I want to view new tutorials. So click that. So on the top next to the comment section, you can see there is an option to add tag. So click on add tag and I'm going to enter tag as data. If you want to add more tab, you can do that. I'm going to click on add again. This time I'm going to call it as UX and you can hit on save and close. Now you can see that there are two tags now visible on this card and the data tag is highlighted in yellow as per the configuration what we made in the last step. So now let's go back to the configure team settings one more time. You can find that box here. Under board, this time select columns. Click on add a column. First give a name for your column. So I'm going to call it QA approved. Under work in progress limit, I'm going to type 1. So this work in progress item 1 means that one work item should be in this stage at a time. You should ordinarily set this to higher values. So in the real world, you should ideally set this value on a higher limit. Now you can click on this QA approved and you can drag this and drop it between committed and done. So here you can see committed and done. And I'm going to click on save and close. As you can see that there is a new stage in the workflow now, which is the QA approved, which we created just now. So now I'm going to move this as a customer. I want to see the tutorials I recently viewed to the QA approved stage. Now I'm going to change as a customer. I want to request new tutorials to the QA approved stage. Please note that the stage now exceeds its work in progress limit and it is colored as red as a warning. So now if you move one item to another stage, so let's suppose if I move to committed, you can see that the QA approved changed back to green color. Now let's go back to the settings page, go under columns, click on columns and click on QA approved, scroll down. Here you can check this box to split the column into doing and done. So to create two separate columns. So as your team updates the status of work as in progress from one stage to the next, it helps that they agree on what done means, and by specifying the definition of done criteria for each Kanban column, you help share the essential tasks to complete before moving an item into a downstream stage. So you can scroll down to the bottom of the page. Under definition, I'm gonna add passes all the test and click on save and close. Now you can see that in the QA approved stage, there are two sub stages, or it is a split stage now. One it is doing and another one is done. You can see, click on this information button that will show you the definition what we have created just now. Now let's go back to the settings menu one more time. So a Kanban board supports your ability to visualize the flow of the work as it moves from new to done. So click on swim lanes. When you add swim lanes, you can also visualize the status of the work that supports different service level classes. You can create a swim line to represent any other dimension that support your tracking needs. So click on add swim lane, give a name. I'm going to call it expedite and click on save and close. Now you can move this work item from committed item to a doing stage at the expedite swim line so that it gets recognized as having high priority when QA bandwidth becomes available. So that's a quick lesson on customizing your Kanban boards. You can even customize a lot of things over here in the real world scenario. So in this task, we will create a custom Scrum based processes. The processes will include a backlog item field designed to track to a proprietary parts unlimited ticket ID. So let's go and do that. On the Azure DevOps page, click on the Azure DevOps icon on the home page. So this will take us to the home page. And this is known as the root or account root page. And at the bottom of the page on the left hand corner, click on organization settings. Under organization settings, scroll down. Under boards, select processes. So this is the all processes pane. So you can see there is Agile, Scrum, CMMI. So on the Scrum one, if you just hover your mouse over it, you can see this ellipsis. So click on that and select create inherited processes. In the create inherited processes from Scrum panel, in the process, give a name for this Scrum process. So I'm going to call it as customized Scrum and click on create process. You can see that the new process has been created and it is visible, and select that. So this is where you can see all the processes. We are going to select the product backlog item. So click on that. Here on the top ribbon, click on new field. We are going to add a field to the product backlog item and we are going to call it as pull ticket ID. And on the left hand side, click on layout and here click on create a new group. And I'm going to name it as parts unlimited and click on add field. So now that the customized process has been configured, let's switch to the agile planning and portfolio management. click on processes one more time. And you can see that our current project uses the Scrum methodology. So select Scrum, click on projects. So here you can find the list of projects. So this is where you can see the agile planning and portfolio management with Azure Boards entry. So click on the ellipsis symbol and you can click on change processes. On the change processes pane, select a target process. You can select customized Scrum and click on save and then close. Now let's click on the Azure DevOps homepage and go to the root page and select the agile planning portfolio management, and on the left hand side click on boards and click on work items. So here I'm going to select the first work item. So I want to request new tutorials. So let's go and verify that we can see the ticket ID field under parts unlimited group. So let's scroll down. You can see that now we have the ticket ID field under the parts unlimited group. This was defined during the process customization. So you can treat this like any other text field. So once the work item is saved, Azure DevOps will also save the new custom information so that it will be available for queries and through the rest of the DevOps. So that completed the exercise on customizing the team process. Now let's go and do the next task. Alright, so the last task on this Azure Boards lab exercise is defining dashboards. So in this task, we will go through steps and the processes of creating dashboards and their core components. So let's go and do that. So in the vertical navigation pane of the Azure DevOps portal, this time instead of boards, click on overview. Under overview, you have summary, dashboards and wiki. So select dashboards. So dashboards allows teams to visualize status and monitor progress across the project. At a glance, you can make informed decisions without having to drill down into other parts of your team's project site. The overview page provides access to a default team dashboard, which you can customize by adding, removing, or rearranging the tiles. Each of the tile corresponds to a widget that provides access to one or more features or functions. So you can access this by going under dashboards and click on overview. So on the top of the dashboard page, if you select this drop down option, you can create a new dashboard if you want. So click on create a dashboard. On the right hand side, give a name for your dashboard. If you want, you can add a description. I'm going to retain this as a team dashboard, not a project dashboard. Under team, I'm going to select pull web. That's what we created in the beginning of this lab. And click on create. So our new dashboard is quite empty. To add a new widget, all you have to do is click on add a widget. And on the right hand side, you can search for different boxes. So I'm going to search for sprint and search for sprint overview and select that and click on add. And if you want to add more widgets, you can search for it and you can add however number of widgets you want to add. Once you done with this addition, you can click on done editing. You can go directly to your newly created dashboard. To add one more widget or more widgets, you can click on edit and again type in sprint. This time I'm searching for sprint capacity and click on add and click on done editing. So you can customize it and move it wherever you want after clicking on edit. So I'm going to move it here and click on done editing. You can now review these two important aspects of the current sprint on your custom dashboard. So another way of customizing dashboard is to generate charts based on work item queries, which you can share to a dashboard. So let's go and do the work item queries. So to do that, go back to Azure Boards and this time click on queries. We don't have any queries yet, so click on new query. So on the query under field work item type operator equal to, I'm gonna select the value as task, and on the editor tab under queries under field, I'm gonna select area path under the value as my project, which is agile planning and portfolio management with Azure Boards pull web. select that. After making the appropriate selection, click on Save Query. You can give a name for your query. I'm going to call it as Web Task. Under Folder, I'm going to select Shared Queries. Oops. Let's click on Save Query one more time. Give a name Web Task. And I'm going to select Saved Queries and click OK. Now let's go and click on Charts. Click on New Chart. I'm going to call it as Web Task by Assignment. In the group by, select Assign To and click OK. So this is the task which is assigned to my username. Now you can add this task to your, or now you can add this chart to your dashboard. So all you have to do is click on this ellipsis, click on Add to Dashboard and select the dashboard. So I'm going to select Product Training and click OK. Now let's go back to Overview, click on Dashboards. You can see that there is a new dashboard added, but this time instead of selecting from the widget, we created our own custom dashboard using a query. So in this lab, we have learned how to use Azure Boards to perform a number of common agile planning and portfolio management tasks, which include management of teams, areas, iteration, work items, sprints, and capacity. And customizing Kanban boards, defining dashboards, and customizing team processes. I hope you found the information provided in this lab helpful. I will see you on the next one. Until then, take care.